In this module, we're going to focus on the research process, the components of a formal research paper, and then review how to use the library. In our last module, we discussed the spectrum of subjectivity to objectivity. And in this class, we're going to focus on two forms of research that exemplify that difference. The first is quantitative research. This is where we discover patterns in communication and behavior, and this is also where we have numbers in research. It is considered a science, and it is on the objective side of the spectrum. On the subjective side of the spectrum is qualitative research. This is where we're looking for meaning inside patterns in communication and behavior. Qualitative research is still more objective than other forms of communication research in other classes you might have taken, like rhetoric, for example, or critical analysis. So qualitative research is still considered a science. It has a method to it, and you follow that method, and it is guided in your interpretation. So both of these are science, and both of them will be discussed in this class. Research is very orderly, and we follow the scientific process. So the first thing that we have to do is establish a problem. It's the thing that we want to figure out, or the concern that we have. And once we figure out that concern, then we want to gather data. Sometimes that's research that others have done on the topic or on related topics to help us begin to figure out our problem. And then we conduct our own study. So this is when we apply our methods, whatever they may be, in data gathering and analysis. And then in science, we also go through a review process. So this is when we send our work out to peers, other scientists in the field who are experts in the same topic. And they review it. They point out maybe errors we might have made, or they make suggestions for improvement. If a scientific study is published, it should be replicable, which means that another scientist can follow the same methods and procedures, and they can also test whether they would get the same result. This is the scientific process, and this is the process that all researchers undergo. Research is also fairly standard in how it's written. So the first part of the paper is the abstract, and this is the very brief summary of what the problem was, how it was addressed, and what theory was used to help interpret those results. The abstract is where you can go if you want to find out whether a study is even relevant to what you're looking at. Then you have the introduction. The introduction is like an executive summary. It basically covers all the important parts of the paper. So for the average individual or the general population, if you're not an expert in that subject or you don't have a PhD, reading the introduction is going to be the place you're going to go where it's the most general and easiest to understand. Then you have the literature review. And this is where the researchers are making an argument for the problem they addressed. They're trying to justify why this is something that other researchers should care about. They're justifying why this is a topic of social importance. And they're also then explaining where the gap is. So why is this problem still unanswered? Why does this problem still exist? So literature review has many, many functions, and all of them are equally important. For replication purposes, the method section is the critical section. This is where the researcher has to list every single step they took in the data gathering so that another researcher can read the method section and do exactly what they did and test whether they get the same result. Now, we don't often do replication in most of social sciences. We tend to improve upon what others have done before. So maybe this sample wasn't quite as diverse as it could have been, or maybe maybe they chose to use an online survey when an in-person or on-paper survey would have gotten more accurate results. So we don't necessarily do everything verbatim of another researcher, but it is really very helpful to know exactly what steps another researcher went through. So after we've introduced our problem, we've reviewed the literature, and we've told you what we've done to collect the data, now we have to tell you what we found, and this is in the results section. So this is where we report our analysis. We applied our statistical procedures, or we applied a coding scheme, and this is what we found. And then finally, the discussion section says, okay, here's what we found. Here's how it relates to all the literature we talked about in the literature review. Here's where our arguments fit in this whole puzzle, looking at this one type of problem or one type of phenomenon. Whether you're ever going to write a scholarly article or you need to find information on a topic really quickly for your organization, knowing how to do quick, simple, and easy library research is essential. So you're going to watch a very short video, and then you're going to do a few exercises to make sure that you perfect that skill.